Hello!
And we're live.
We are live.
And we're running the show.
We're very organized. This will be the most organized Talk to the Entities live ever so far.
The most organized, disorganized event. I'm just speaking for us three. The people that organize it are very organized.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for organizing.
Awesome. So welcome, Alison Cox and Monica Gilliam.
Hello.
Talk to the Entities Facilitators. I'm Max Zorlich. I'm also a Talk to the Entities Facilitator. And we're here to have a chat about that.
Yay! And I think our first question today that we are going to go over is, why did we choose to become Talk to the Entities certified facilitators? What the heck are we doing here?
Well, I can go with that. So I was living in New Orleans, Louisiana, a few years ago when I first came across the tools of access consciousness, and I had an acupuncture clinic, and there was somebody who came into my clinic who was having all of these problems, but it turned out that she was just super aware. Like, I had multiple people in the clinic all at once. I would treat everybody all at once, and she would come in and she would be like, oh no, when I turn my head that way, I feel something in my shoulder. And when I turn my head that way, my ankle hurts. And she was really nervous and scared about it all, but she would be explaining everything that was going on for everybody else in the clinic. And I was just like, hey, I know what it's like. It's okay. You're just aware. And the more that we talked about that, the more she started to also reveal that just a few years prior, she had kind of all at once just started hearing all of these voices. And she was really scared about that. And she had gone and gotten all sorts of brain scans done and was on all kinds of medicines. And she kind of outlined what she wanted her life to be like, which seemed really boring to me. It was like, I just want to work all the time and do something that just takes all my attention and that like doesn't really have me interact with people, and maybe I'll just stay inside a lot. And she was such a kind, cool person. I was like, this can't be it, So I just started to go and ask, okay, so what can I find that could contribute to her? And the big thing was especially with like the hearing all of the voices and stuff like that. So I had come across Access Consciousness, and I just started watching everything that was free that I could find. And then I saw some classes that Shannon did. And it was like, wow, this is a way to deal with some of what this woman was aware of that was just really simple. And so I just started to like walk around and just like use the clearing tools and just use some of the questions just at random. And then I would just notice, okay, what am I aware of? Now I'll say, I'll like clear entities. Now what am I aware of? And I wanted to just try it all out so that before I said to this woman, try these things, I could have a sense of how that was in my world. And it was like, wow, all of these things that I've been aware of, that I've been trying to like push away, it all just became so much easier. And so I started to talk to this particular woman about these tools, and it just created so much ease in her life. And it was so exciting. I just wanted to be able to tell anybody who might be encountering something similar, that it's okay, you're not crazy, you're just aware. And there are these really simple and effective ways that you can engage with your awareness to have even more awareness with less problem. So that's kind of what took me on that journey.
That's awesome.
That's
yeah.
Cool. What about you?
Cool.
I remember, this is a long time ago now, probably like 6 years ago, I think, is when I didn't know that ghosts and things were, I knew that I was terrified of ghosts, ever since I was a little kid. Also, everyone told me that they were fake, not real, so that was confusing and also just brought more anxiety because I always was aware of something. And there was always this low level of anxiety, and then I found Access Consciousness eventually, and some of the questions were so great to just kind of like start to clear out the paranoia, the whatever. And then I started looking at the other classes that Access had to offer, and I saw Talk to the Entities, and I was like, what? That's real? Like, this is real. Cool. And it just, in my world, it exploded in my world, and I was like, wow, what is that? So I took my first Talk to the Entities class, and all of that paranoia, all of the not acknowledging what I was aware of, which turned out to be anxiety, showed up as anxiety, paranoia, blah, 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 was actually just awareness of entities and energies. And so after that first class, like, there was just so much space and calm and peace in my world. I was like, whoa, I need to share this with other people. I would love to facilitate this. Like, this matches the energy of what I would like to see in the world. And so from there, now we are here. And it's been a journey, and it doesn't stop. It is amazing. Every single class that I get to take and facilitate.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
what about
for me,
you, Zach? Yeah.
For me, it's kind of twofold. I met Shannon in 2011, and before I met her officially, because now I'm married to her. Before I met her officially, like, we met at a COP class, and she did an evening intro for Talk to the Entities. So I was pretty new to Access, like 6 months into Access, so everything was quite new, and I'd done a whole lot of different stuff beforehand, trying to find the right answer. And so I'd never really had anything to do, quote unquote, with entities, in the sense of that I was willing to acknowledge, right? So it was like a super interesting topic, and I was receiving it with my mind at the time, and I thought, oh, this is very interesting. And then I became more romantically involved with Shannon, and I was doing her classes because we were together.
Recording.
And it was actually some years into having done beginning classes and some advanced classes where I really acknowledged that I was aware of entities. For me, it was like a good idea for a long time. And then I was like coming home from a class one time, and I was like aware of this particular thing, and remember that Shannon mentioned it in class. So I used the tool, and it shifted immediately. So it went from my head to beyond my head into actually, wow, this is like now just completely different. Like Alison was saying, I was aware of, like, I'd say a low grade of anxiety pretty much all of the time. And then that would heighten into like more anxiety, that I was paranoid of, that I was the wrongest person in the world. Everyone hated me. I didn't fit in anywhere. And that's one of the things that when I used, like, and this is entity clearing tools, a very basic, one of the first things you learn, even you hear it on free calls, free introductions that facilitators do. I used that, and immediately it was gone, and I just felt like everything was fine, and here I am, and I'm just not paranoid anymore and anxious and crazy. And then that occurred several times now where I was like, okay, the tools are actually working. Rather than just being a concept, it was like having a huge impact in my life when I was using those tools. And the second thing that I then noticed sometime down the track was this constant contribution that was desiring to give to me. And Shannon started doing the Beings of Light classes, and I'm a little bit slow. I'm just, have to acknowledge that. After doing a couple of those Being of Light classes, and she wrote the book as well. And I read that book over and over. Like, first of all, because I was proofreading it, but it was changing my universe just when I was proofreading it. And then even when it came out, I read it because it's a small handbook as well. It's really easy to read, but it was so impactful in the way of what it was touching in my universe that I was starting to then receive the contribution that was constantly there, desiring to gift, that I wasn't willing to receive. So there was that thing of like dealing with the problems, quote unquote, the awareness that I wasn't willing to have, and then receiving the contribution that I wasn't willing to have also. And what that's allowed me to sort of have in my life is so undefinable, I would say. But if I look back to where I was and where I was functioning from, how I was living my life, because of everything I wasn't willing to be aware of and wasn't willing to have, is a completely different universe now. So being a talk to entities, I actually don't facilitate many talk to entities classes. I'm a little lazy in that way. But it does contribute to everything that I do facilitate. So I'm not active in definition of facilitating those classes, but whatever I do facilitate, which is 24/7, basically, we're facilitating. Those of you guys that are watching this, like, you are facilitating constantly. And whether you're willing to acknowledge what you're facilitating and turn that up, or whether you're sort of at the effect of the capacity that you have, that's sort of the path that we're talking about at the moment. We're like, oh, I had no idea, then I got some of idea, and now I have more of an idea, and what else is possible is basically what we're talking about.
Yeah. Even before getting on this call, I was like, whoa. About 15 minutes before getting on the call, I'm like, am I going to puke everywhere? What is going on? Oh my God. Like, wow. It's this Facebook Live. I mean, it's just a Facebook Live. What the heck? I'm like, okay.
Quote unquote, just.
I'm like, wow, what am I not? So the tools, what I've really gotten and what's changed for me a lot with becoming a facilitator and using the tools, and year after year, it's like, and day after day, I was like, whoa, what am I aware of that I can now receive? And a lot of what Shannon brings to the facilitators in the facilitators class is a different level of receiving. And I didn't know what that was, even up until a few moments ago. Like, this was a totally different thing. I was like, puking, nervous, stomach, what's going on? I'm like, wait a minute. What possibilities? What am I not willing to be aware of right now? Who are we about to engage with? What are we about to engage with? Like, what is this new thing that's available now? And then everything started to relax. And I'm acknowledging that I started becoming whatever we're changing, even just talking about this. So what a gift that is in itself.
Yeah, I love that example. Like, you're a talk to entities facilitator, and this is the same for me all the time. I'm like, awareness, and then you're like, question. Oh, that's the possibility. And then more question, like, what's possible now? What can we create? What are we actually facilitating? What are we changing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's cool for me as I was starting just with my own talk to the entities journey, and then taking that in a further direction with facilitating, was just like, you have to like really strengthen your trust in your awareness. And it's like, especially when you're engaging with the subtleties of energies that aren't just like something solid that you can quote unquote see, and there may be ways that nobody can confirm what you're aware of.
Right.
Nobody can define it. Nobody can be like, yes, that is correct, because I also am aware of it in the exact same way. And so
you got the right awareness.
Yeah, you got it right. You did it. You get an A+, but instead just being like, I can just acknowledge that I'm aware of something, and then asking more questions. And when I was doing a bunch of the other access classes, the foundation class and all of that, it's like you're engaging with your awareness. But this for me was something where it was like, it was something that I had always been aware of, that I never had a chance to talk to anybody about. Like the skin on the back of your neck just kind of being chilled or whatever, just like all of these sensations of awareness that for me was something that I was trying to avoid, to not be crazy. All of a sudden I was able to talk to people about it, but didn't have to be exactly like everybody else. I didn't have to try and get it right. I could just use this conversation to like deepen my own engagement with me and what I was aware of, even as I was engaging with the world around me, so it's super cool. Like, that's something that I definitely wouldn't have expected, to come from all of this, that I would have to like really trust me, even if nobody else knows exactly what I know or in the exact same way that I know it. And that's been so empowering across the board in my life. And then to get to facilitate others to trust themselves. Then the cool thing is that like each person can like show you something different that you might never have gotten to know if you hadn't been engaged with them. And like when we get to empower others, we all benefit, you know? So it's really cool to get to be a facilitator of this particular area that is something that people tend to like push away. And there's a lot of like, you know, stories that can kind of cloud what is actually possible, you know, but here we get to like just turn right to the weirdest stuff and relax and be present with it and actually have an impact. And like, that's super amazing.
And actually get the pragmatic element of this. I like the way that Access facilitates, like what Gary's introduced there, and then also with Shannon in this particular field, how it's never about something weird or significant. It's always like very practical. Like whenever we in the classes talk about the tools and so forth, it's always very pragmatic and always very much in the question of what do you know, just like Monica was saying now. And what I find so interesting is again and again, like in my own universe, and then even when you guys were talking about it, how we make our awareness us. Like, this is me. Like, you've both spoken about it. I've spoken about it. Like, we think, like when the anxiety or the depression or the shivers on the spine or all these different awareness signs, like when we make it ours, that's when we're not in the question. There's not really a possibility, because then we have to look at who else is experiencing this. How do I fix this? Or in the conclusion that there's a problem, rather than really like the progressive element. And I think this is what the future is like, in a bigger sense, is that question, and what are we actually creating here? What's actually going on here?
Mm-hmm.
Not that people have to agree on it or anything like that, but the actual asking the questions to open all the doors to what we've made as humanoids. We've made ourselves wrong. We have to like try and retract from awareness and other people and so forth, rather than being more of what we be, which is in having that awareness, recognizing what our reality is, and choosing what we desire to create.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it reminds me of like one of the coolest things about being a facilitator is facilitating, which means creating more ease for someone or something. And so we do that through questions and just being kind of the leader of a class and asking questions and engaging people to ask questions of their own. You are literally like becoming a little or a big, what is it when you turn metal into gold or something? You're like an alchemist of the universe, and you empower people to become an alchemist of their own realities, because question always changes and always invites new possibilities. So when you facilitate these classes, you bring in and alchemize a totally different reality for you and everyone else in the class, like every time. Or you just facilitating, like Max said, by yourself every day, or like Monica said, like you are aware of your own reality and what's yours, and every time you ask a question, you're facilitating everything around you and manipulating all the molecules. So I'm like, wow! That's been kind of a theme this week. I'm like, whoa, we are powerful and we don't even know it.
Yeah, I love that term alchemist that you use in terms of facilitation, because that's so spot on.
Right.
Because it's always the movement. There's never a conclusion. There's never a decision. There's not a fixed element. There's always like this constant movement of magic and creation.
Yeah.
In such a real sense, not just fairy tale stuff. It's like, it's tangible. It's you can see the shifts happening and what's changing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mean see physically, like perceive.
Yeah. But
using the correct terminology, darling.
It's not a fairy tale thing, but the cool thing is that the world becomes so much more alive when you get to acknowledge the consciousness of everything, when you actually are engaging with everything, whether it's your business or a book or a project or a plant or your body, whatever, when you're engaging with and talking to the entities, then all of a sudden it becomes this rich, almost fairy tale story of like, well, why don't you just go ask the plant, or why don't you just go ask the food, or whatever it is, you know? And like, it's such a joyful acknowledgement of, you know, the richness that is here to contribute to us, to nurture us, that we can play with. And we don't have to actually just feel like we're at the effect of everything and we can't talk to everything, and actually work with everything to create greater, to alchemize.
Yeah, it doesn't just exist in the movies and the books anymore, people.
Right. Here. It's not fantasy, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
And what you actually just said, Monica, is like what I'm most excited about is the world becomes more beautiful.
Yeah.
Basically.
Aww.
Yeah.
Cool. Alison, are there other questions that we
kind of went over all the questions in our conversation, but well, like the last one, yeah. What unexpected gift did you get from being a Talk to the Entities certified facilitator that you would never have imagined when you chose it? I'm like, everything we just talked about, I'm like, I never would have imagined.
Well, for the people that are watching this, I'd love to ask you guys, and I guess it's a rhetorical question because this is sort of like a one-way conversation, but a question that you can ask of yourselves, like, what would you actually like to create in the world? Like, what would you, if you could have anything in the world, and this is like, Dane asks this question a lot, if you could have anything in this world, like, what would you actually like to see in the world? And are you willing to see yourself as a source of that? Are you willing to be a source of that? And because we're talking about facilitating and such, well, speaking for myself, I know that I never saw myself as like I could really be that change. And I'm getting it like a little bit now, you know, after 9 or 10 years of doing Access. Like I said, I'm a little bit slow, but it's there. I know there is so much more, and I'm like, I am seeing this much, and what else is possible now? Like, what could you choose that would create getting a sense of you being the gift that you are in the world, whatever that looks like. Doesn't mean you have to facilitate access or anything particular. It's like to be that gift that you are. What would that be for you?
Wow. I mean, with this question, like, what is the gift that we received that we never would have expected? And exactly what you're asking right now too, Max. You know, it's like, it's so undefinable. I mean, what my life is now, as opposed to what it was before I chose to be a Talk to the Entities facilitator. Like, I had to choose beyond what was familiar, and I had to keep on choosing. Like, I had to choose to be able to pay for the class. You know, I had to choose to be able to do the traveling back in the days when we could travel, and each choice that I made just really opened up this sense of like, wow, I can do this. And I didn't realize how much doubt I had about what I was capable of, that like really shifted when I just pushed myself to go ahead and go for it, you know? And then to like step into, okay, so if I'm going to be a facilitator, like, what is that? What is it to connect with other people, to talk to other people in a way that allows them to be greater, that allows them to ask us to be greater, you know, like, what is all of that? And like the way that my world has shifted, it's like, I can't put it to words, but I really, like, I can't imagine choosing anything else at this point, you know?
Yeah, that's great. I'm excited to ask, even for us and for the facilitator training coming up, like, what unexpected gift can we receive that we've never considered possible through this choice and through our journey forward?
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think, I resonate with what Monica's saying too, is like, I couldn't fathom choosing less now.
Yeah.
Right.
I try. It hurts. Don't. I mean, you could try.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't go there.
Yeah. And also another thing that comes up for me when I do different facilitators classes, it's just so inspiring to know that like there are these almost like beacons of light around the world. People who have the tools that like, like within my family, if we had had the tools of talk to the entities 30 years ago, like there would be so much suffering that could have been alleviated. And then, like, gosh, they're such simple tools. And to be able to be a source of like spreading those tools around the world is so inspiring. And to be able to go to a facilitator's class and be there with people who are coming together, whether it's on Zoom or in person, from all over the world, who will then go out and like send all of this information out even further. It is beyond
like Tomorrowland.
I know. Yeah.
They are basically like little kids going on a journey with no idea what they're really doing, but changing the world.
You guys, this has been so much fun. I'm so curious who else is going to become Talk to the Entities facilitator.
Totally.
Me too.
You can do it if you would like to.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to.
Cool.
It's so funny. I think at this stage it's impossible to be like, you can do it, because you're like, well, if you choose it.
It's your choice.
If you want to. Like, it's hard to be a motivational person that's like hyping people to choice, because you're like, well, you just got to choose it.
Right. Well, I'm glad to have chosen it, and I'm glad to get to talk to you two.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
How does it get
What
any
else can we
better?
choose?
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.